Well, and another great day at the job site. It's gonna be weird because I'm uploading both of these at the same time. But the first upload is in the morning. The second upload is me driving home. It's raining, sucks, it's shitty out. Welcome to the Shellen Show.
Suburbs, some torrential rain could cause some urban street flooding, as well as some rising creeks and streams in the area. Be aware of that. As far as the rest of the evening goes, we could still see some shower thunderstorm activity for a while yet. 68 degrees in the Twin Cities right now. The time is 6 o'clock.
There we go.
Support for Marketplace comes from Carlson Capital Management.
Marketplace is a good
peace of mind to
NPR.
clients desiring a comprehensive wealth management experience of investment, estate, tax, retirement, risk management, and philanthropic planning. Employee-owned, Minnesota-based. CarlsonCap.com.
I will be smoking a cigarette at some point during this car ride because I need it.
C3.ai, addressing the world's most challenging problems at the convergence of artificial intelligence, IoT, and elastic cloud computing. Learn more at C3.ai.
CBS and Viacom finally get back together and are still tiny by media consolidation standards. Plus, a casualty of a media merger from days gone by. From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by LifeLock. LifeLock with Norton reminds consumers that cyber criminals can steal identities and take
Marketplace
over mobile devices with malware. Learn more at lifelock.com. And Bob Patel, solving some of the toughest challenges for government and commercial customers for 90 years. Finding solutions at Patel It Can Be Done. Patel.org/marketplace.
From Oakland, California, I'm Molly Wood in for Kai Risdall. It's Tuesday, August 13th, and it's good to have you with us. My apologies in advance, though, because we're going to give you a little more tariff whiplash. It wasn't even 2 weeks ago that President Trump threatened new tariffs, which are, it should be said here again, taxes on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods starting September 1st.
Only time NPR has ever used the word taxes in a negative light.
But today, the president walked back that threat, and some of those tariffs now won't kick in until mid-December. Marketplace's Sabri Benishore tells us what that's about.
Cell phones, cameras, video games, Christmas tree lights, all among the imports from China that won't be taxed until mid-December. December. So what happens in December?
Holiday shopping season.
Oh, right. Richard Weiner is an international trade lawyer with Sidley Austin. He says it is no coincidence that these particular gifty kinds of goods are not going to get taxed until well after retailers have had a chance to stock up for holiday shoppers.
Santa and his elves vote in purple states, and they don't want to lose those votes, so they've backed away from this threat.
The president has often said that China pays these tariffs, but today the president himself told reporters he postponed them in case they had an impact on holiday shopping.
Yep.
Their claims that China pays these tariffs simply is not true.
NPR loves hammering this.
There's another possible reason the president delayed some of these import taxes.
I think they were delayed because the president started seeing the markets tank.
Nicole Bivens-Collinson is a trade lawyer with Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg. The S&P 500 fell 3% in the days after Trump's announcement at the beginning of August. But while he delayed tariffs on some things, they are going full steam ahead on lots of others, including everything from vanadium chloride to a lot of women's apparel.
We make wedding gowns, we make kids and
goddamn sexist tariff war.
Stephen Lang owns Mon Cherie Bridal, and he's president of the American Bridal and Prom Industry Association.
What he's just done is he's raised my duty bill by 40%, which is enormous. I mean, I paid $5 million in duties last year.
He says that is bound to put some people out of business. In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore for Marketplace.
And at long last, so long it barely feels like news anymore, CBS and Viacom will be one again. Media mogul Sumner Redstone split his empire in two back in 2006, but the two companies have been working toward a sometimes rocky reunion for a few years now. The deal announced today brings Paramount Pictures, Comedy Central, MTV, the CBS Broadcast Network, Showtime, and some other properties, all under the ownership of one entity that will be worth about $30 billion.
That's
also,
overinflated.
Sounds like the makings of a pretty good streaming lineup, am I right? Keith Hagee covers television for the Wall Street Journal and wrote the book about CBS and Viacom. Keith, thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here.
So we know this has been a long saga. These companies were joined once before, broken up forever, now they're back together. But my real question is, how different is the media landscape that they're in now?
Well, it's completely different. I mean, what really changed was Netflix and the destruction of the cable bundle that really built Viacom, or the old Viacom, as this cable powerhouse. I mean, Netflix came along and that bundle started to erode, and it's really, really challenging to be a cable-based company out there. So it makes sense that they would need more scale.
But, you know, the market cap of CBS and Viacom combined is still just a fraction of some of these media giants. AT&T, Disney, NBC Universal, which has distribution with Comcast, even Netflix. I mean, are they actually strong enough, even together, to take on this landscape?
I think that this will not be the last transaction that we see with these companies. There's been talk for several years. This is but a first step. And exactly as you say, they probably are going to need even more scale going forward. There are still some dance partners out there. Not a lot, but there are some. So I think, people should be keeping an eye on that going forward.
I wonder, though, the big players in this space own both the content and the distribution. Do you think that even, we're starting to see even some cracks in Netflix armor? Is content alone even enough?
That is a question that all media companies' CEOs are asking themselves at this moment. What's been fascinating is how much regulators seem open to the tie-up of content and distribution. I mean, yes, Justice Department did try to sue to block AT&T's purchase of Time Warner, but they ultimately lost, and that's gone forward. So that does seem to be where the market's going.
This is a little bit far afield, but I wonder, did CBS hamper itself for all those years by not building a more robust digital ecosystem? Did they leave themselves too dependent on cable?
Well, actually, CBS has done a pretty interesting job with its direct-to-consumer offering, CBS All Access. They definitely zigged when everyone else in the industry zagged. They were not part of Hulu, which is kind of what everyone else did in the broadcast space. But they really surpassed my first expectations about how CBS All Access would fare. And so I think their direct-to-consumer strategy has been pretty smart. And I thought it was very interesting that in announcing the deal today...
I don't know why we should even be concerned with cable anymore. The more baby boomers that die, the less and less cable will matter, I think, when it comes to actual media mediums, the internet is all that really it matters going forward. I enjoy, if I had money to burn, I'd probably have cable just because I enjoy watching sports. But outside of sports, what are you paying for? Really nothing. The random, TV movie you watch when you're hungover on a Sunday, that's really about all cable is good for.
Keith Hagee writes about television for the Wall Street Journal's Media and Marketing Bureau. Her book is called The King of Content, Sumner Redstone's Battle for Viacom, CBS, and Everlasting Control of His Media Empire. Keith, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
On Wall Street today, trade wars still on. Tariffs are coming back in a few months. But for today at least, Wall Street let the good times roll. We'll have the details when we do the numbers.
NPR continuously hammers how reckless the tariffs are, and for a very long time, especially at the beginning of Trump's presidency, they would not acknowledge the reason why. They would only focus on the actions of the president and not give context to the actions. And it's only recently that I've noticed that they are finally giving, at least, information on why Trump is doing the tariffs. In my mind, it's not the role of the government to protect our, to protect foreign, governments, forcing, they're voluntarily giving up information and technology to access Chinese markets. It's not our government's job to go to war for our companies overseas. If our companies are really worth the salt and China is needing us in their marketplace, If these companies had balls, they would just ignore China, altogether and focus on other markets. China is not, in a vacuum in the system. They are needing our technologies, and it's quite clear. But they also do steal quite a bit of our technology as well.
Is bound to go away as soon as Tunisia's tourism industry starts bouncing back. People start going back to Egypt and Turkey.
And the country has another problem: its rapidly aging population.
Even if we come up with policies that can allow the younger generations to have families, they will only take effect on the labor markets in the next 20 years. So, to address the transitional problem, the only way I see is migration.
The government is working on plugging the labor market hole. It wants to attract more foreign workers, take in more refugees, and bring back the hundreds of thousands of Portuguese who left during the crisis. It is fast-tracking high-tech and startup visas and offering financial support to homecoming Portuguese from this year on.
Hello, how are you?
Nice meeting you.
Pedro Cisa Vieira is Portugal's Minister of Economy.
It is crucial that we are capable of securing this inflow of people. Young people departed because the economy is not providing sufficiently attractive jobs. That landscape is changing. The country needs them. Their work is now valued, and refugees will be also welcome.
But not everybody feels Portugal is doing what's needed to offer a good economic future. In São João de Talha, a small suburb near Lisbon, dozens of refugees are queuing at a government immigration center. The 28-year-old Abdurrahman Ibrahim from Eritrea arrived 6 years ago. But the hairdresser is still not allowed to work in his profession. I was told I needed to speak proper Portuguese, he tells me, but there are no good language courses to really learn it. And I need to do a course to validate my hairdresser qualification, which costs thousands of euros.
That's insane. That's government regulation.
Are the government initiatives
right there
enough to bring native Portuguese workers back home? In France, the biggest Portuguese diaspora in the world has grown further since the crisis. Project manager Richard Tavares arrived from Aveiro in northern Portugal a few years ago. He could benefit from the new government measures for homecomers, but he says moving back is out of the question.
I don't think people will decide to go back because of this program. Wages are a lot higher abroad, and there are a lot more stable jobs here. If someone goes back, it's for personal reasons.
With rents and prices going up steadily in Portugal and wages stagnating, the saudade, nostalgic longing for home, might still be Portugal's best way to convince its people to return.
That was Lisa Lewis reporting from Portugal.
I don't know much about Portuguese culture. That's something I should probably look up more.
President Trump visited natural gas drilling country today, Western Pennsylvania, to tout what he calls American energy dominance. And actually, that area is struggling under what you might call over-dominance. There is too much natural gas from drilling and fracking, so the selling price has plummeted. One source of hope is a new big buyer coming in, a multi-billion-dollar petrochemical plant that will turn some ingredients of natural gas into plastics. Marketplace's Scott Tong reports.
The price of natural gas is hit a 3-year low because there's too many drillers in Pennsylvania, too much natural gas coming out of the ground with oil in Texas. So Pennsylvania energy firms now drill in places with not just gas, but other liquids to sell on the side. Propane, ethane, butane. Rusty Brazil is president of RBN Energy.
The more hydrocarbons that I sell out of the well, the better off I am. So I am better off selling propane, butanes, and natural gasoline rather than just selling a dry...
Butane is a bastard gas.
Sold to petrochemical plants, like the one the president visited in Pennsylvania today. And they turn ethane into the main ingredient in plastics. which, says Joseph Markman at Hart Energy, will ship to Europe to make retail plastic stuff.
The plastic products come back to us on store shelves in terms of water bottles, in terms of containers for peanut butter and mayonnaise.
So natural gas from fracking has fueled America's chemical and plastics businesses. But they too could make more than the world wants. With plastic particles increasingly found in the oceans and the air, there's a backlash against overuse. Economist Christoph Ruhl is with Crystal Energy.
Everybody sees that he doesn't need to have plastic bags necessarily. You can do your shopping in a different way. So this is a campaign, an environmental campaign. I don't know how justified it is, but it has all the ingredients of success.
For now, though, the hope in Pennsylvania is that a petrochemical plant can bring a lifeline to the struggling natural gas industry.
That's another thing NPR loves to do, is they love to take something that Trump stands on and subvert it. They masturbate to that shit. They fucking love it so much. And they do it so often. It's not that they should be cheering on the president in everything that he does, but you will notice that darn near daily, if Trump does anything, they have a segment trying to debunk it or at least minimize how proud the accomplishments of his administration can be, consistently looking towards subverting his presidency, which if you looked at how or listened to them during the Obama administration, it was how this is an underserved section. We're so happy the president is shining a light on these people. Had NPR done the exact same, had Obama done something similar, they would have looked at how the natural gas industry is starting to employ more people, how the section, any kind of improvements they could find, and how people are struggling, but at least we're trying to do something about it. That's the tonal shift on it there. It's not that their reporting is, not necessarily any different, nuts and bolts wise, but the absolute tone behind the report would be different. They'd still, acknowledge the difficulties of the region. However, the optimism and the pro-government aspects of it would be much more obvious in the reporting instead of the obvious subversion of it there.
One of the Midwest's largest green roofs, a biomass heat and power plant, and organics recycling.
Okay. Plastic is bullshit, though. Stop using plastic. Don't use plastic bags. If you go to Cub Foods, use the paper bags, you assholes. Plastic does not go away. Plastic goes into the ocean. It only breaks down into smaller pieces of plastic. The fish eat it, and then you eat it, and it's just a shit cycle. Don't use plastic whenever you can. I mean, if you can avoid it. I never use plastic bags. Even for meat. I know it's going to bleed into the bag. Fuck it, I don't care. I'm going to carry it from the bottom going into my house.
Those who perhaps had sued him.
I'm Michael Barbaro. That's Today on the Daily from the New York Times.
The Daily coming up at 6:30 on NPR News.
Daily is a horribly liberal program.
6:18 in the Twin Cities. The temperature now at 71 degrees.
Not bad.
This is Marketplace. I'm Molly Wood. Speaking of major media mergers and consolidation, here's a tale of how that can sometimes turn out. Back in 2013, there was Yahoo. Remember that? And that year, Yahoo bought the social blogging platform Tumblr for $1 billion. And then Verizon bought Yahoo a few years later, merged it with AOL, and poor Tumblr got a little lost in the shuffle. This week, Verizon announced it was offloading Tumblr for a, quote, nominal sum, as in way less than $1 billion. Tumblr could have been the first Instagram. So how did it go the way of MySpace? Marketplace's Jack Stewart takes a look.
Tumblr sunk Yahoo.
Tumblr generated passion amongst those who wrote, read, and shared short blogs and internet memes.
Tumbling down Tumblr, there's so many cats. Look, this one's wearing a hat.
This YouTube tribute is called Tumblr the Musical. It was published in 2012 by Hank Green, one of the popular Vlogbrothers.
There was a moment in time when it was sort of small and beautiful, and it felt very collected and understandable.
Verizon acquired Tumblr through its purchase of Yahoo in 2017. Yahoo itself, of course, is another example of the cruel cycle of internet popularity. Keith Snyder's an analyst at CFRA.
One day you're really, really fast growing, top of the dog heap, and then the next day you're being sold kind of for pennies on the dollar.
Tumblr alienated a lot of users last year when it banned pornography and adult content, but it's always just had a hard time competing with Facebook and Twitter, and more recently the likes of Instagram and TikTok. And that's just the way of social media. It thrives and then withers, says Jessa Lingle at the University of Pennsylvania.
It's the cycle unless you're so big that you just buy out your competition. Facebook has proved fairly immune to this cycle, but that's mostly because it's willing to buy things like WhatsApp and Instagram.
Lingle says a social media site doesn't have to be as huge as Facebook to be successful. Tumblr could just continue to serve more niche audiences. YouTuber Hank Green agrees that's the way to go.
Yeah, definitely don't be everything to everyone. That's taken.
Yeah, by Facebook and Twitter.
Tumblr's the place for me.
I'm Jack Stewart for Marketplace.
I don't get Tumblr. Also, I don't have an Instagram, though, so that probably affects my viewpoint on
This
Tumblr.
country is in the middle of an affordable housing crisis, especially on the coasts. And as a result, home sales in big coastal cities are down 4% compared to last year, according to the National Association of Realtors. But if you look at cities further inland, you might see a slightly different story. A housing market boom in the heart of the Midwest.
Yeah.
Laura Cusisto wrote about that boom for the Wall Street Journal. Laura, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, so you wrote that Midwest cities are now starting to see a housing boom. What cities are we talking about here?
Kind of a real good variety of cities, everywhere from Kansas City to Cleveland to, this isn't the Midwest, but Boise. Kind of a lot of these kind of secondary cities are seeing a real boom right now in their housing markets.
Secondary
Is the common denominator, is there a common denominator, or is it just that, you know, they were cheaper than the other big cities?
Well, that's a pretty good common denominator, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a lot of these places were less expensive and they were slower to recover from the housing bust. They didn't have that same kind of boom in technology jobs that helped drive the recovery in a lot of places on the West Coast and on the East Coast. And so now they're kind of playing catch up.
So what does that mean? I mean, you write that now there are bidding wars in these cities and that then housing prices are going to start outstripping wages there. Does that mean that there is like nowhere in America that anyone can afford a house anymore?
This is a little bit of a catch-22 that when people in California start selling their homes for $1 million and moving to Cleveland or Boise, it just naturally makes those places more expensive. So I think if you're moving from a high-wage place and you can keep your high-wage job and you can sell your home still for a bunch of money and take that cash, it still looks affordable to you, but it probably doesn't look affordable to someone who's been growing up in Grand Rapids and suddenly home prices are growing by double digits.
Well, then, does it mean that there is going to be a change in Oakland or New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles, or is it just going to be, you know, sort of crazy everywhere?
We are for sure already seeing a change in those places. It's just a matter of putting in context what that change looks like. Home prices in the sort of San Jose area, home prices in Seattle and LA, they are declining. But that's different from saying that those places are going to be super affordable. We're talking about, you know, a place that was maybe selling for 1.3 million, selling for 1.2. So it's not going to totally remake these places, but it's a big shift in those markets and a kind of worrying one.
Let's talk about the good news, though. I would imagine that if you live in Grand Rapids or Boise or Kansas City, and you're a real estate agent or somebody who has been waiting for, you know, the boom to catch up to you, that this is some good news.
Oh, and for sure, we should say, if you're pretty much anybody who owns their home already, right? I mean, we talked to people who saw, you know, their home sell in a day. It's really just if you're a renter who's still looking to buy this probably isn't great news for you.
And then just in terms of the economic factors, how big an influence are low rates right now? Are they driving sort of what might be like a short-term boom, like you're saying?
Oh my God, this is a question I'm really trying to answer. I would think that rates should be driving a boom everywhere. Rates are at their lowest level in nearly 3 years. But when I talk to real estate agents, that actually doesn't seem to be the driving factor for people right now. Affordability is such a big issue for people that getting a slightly lower mortgage rate, it doesn't seem to be kind of juicing these markets as much. I think it's helping a little bit in the kind of lower price ranges and in some of these more affordable markets. But right now, the big story really is home prices and affordability.
What do you think that this means broadly? Do you think there's ever going to be an equalization, or are we just going to see this sort of hot housing market shift and continue to spread like a virus?
I think what this kind of tells us is that we're entering, I think, a bit of a new phase.
It's more bacterial.
Until now, it's been driven by big cities with these really good high-wage jobs, and I think we're going to see a shift away from those cities towards some of these cheaper locations. There's sort of an open question in my mind how long a city like Kansas City or Grand Rapids could sustain double-digit price increases. I just don't think that you have the same kind of wage growth, the same kind of really high-paying jobs there. In general, the housing market is slowing down, and I think these cities are going to buck that trend for a while, but probably not forever.
Laura Casisto covers housing for the Wall Street Journal. Laura, thanks so much for the time.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So when it comes to housing price increases, there's two issues. It's a large demand, so developers just can't keep up. Finding people to even just physically come out and build the homes, finding workers for it, it's incredibly difficult. I guarantee 99.9% of the workers there don't speak English. That's actually, you want to lower home pricing. You want to increase unskilled labor immigration into the United States. That's one great way to at least immediately lower home pricing. More competition for these for these more blue-collar, lower-wage jobs is one great way to bring down pricing. Of course, that works great when the economy is great, but when the economy turns to shit and suddenly there's a bunch more people than normal that would be looking for lower jobs, it creates an even greater hurt. So it's really, do you bring in a large labor force that works for a great economy, and then when the economy turns and it creates more hurt around for everybody, it's kind of do you make hay while the sun's shining and then just kind of eat it when shit goes south? That's one thing I don't know. One of the other great things is not great thing. Single-family home protections by local governments greatly increases the amount of opportunities for people to buy homes. When it comes to living in a dense urban environment, you're competing. All right, well, my phone is full of storage, so I deleted an app or two, but I'm basically home now. I'll finish my quick thought on multi-housing. So they have single-family home protections where you can only build single-family homes in certain neighborhoods. Basically, people deciding the number, people voting and using the government to determine the number of neighbors they have. They don't want multi-housing. They don't want, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes. They don't want that large number of neighbors. And basically, they're using the government to ensure that they only, in a way, it's determining, the style of neighborhood they live in via the government, not via people who actually own the land. So, people couldn't sell their home to a developer if they, a developer wouldn't, even offer, buy the home, if it's not in a certain, if it's not zoned for a certain thing. And in the end, that decreases the number of houses overall in a community, as well as increases the home pricing because there's less competition. You're not buying a house, you'd be buying more of a condo. A lot of people in cities, though, You look at a city, any city that's progressed over 50 years. Look at the last 50 years of New York, Minneapolis, Denver. You're not buying a home to be static in these areas. If you want to know what you're going to be, if you want to make an investment in a home and know what you're getting and be confident in what you're getting over 50 years, you gotta leave where the people aren't going. You gotta leave the places that all these people are flocking to. If you want something static, such as neighbor count, those kind of things, keeping away from gentrification, you gotta go farther out of the city. You're gonna have to drive in a half hour to work, those kind of things. Let's face it, you live on the other side of the city anyways from your job, so you're driving through the city anyways. Why don't you just buy, instead of buying a house on the other side of the city, why don't you buy a house out in the country on your job side, and then it's probably the same route anyways, but it doesn't seem to work out that way. Guys, thank you for enjoying. I enjoyed having you here as we drove home from work. This was another day of NPR. Let's see if I get copyright claimed on these uploads here. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. This has been The Shellen Show. I will see you tomorrow morning. Lots of fucking uploads here.